Maverick 100.9 Aggie Lands Country Alternative. It's Corliss, joined by, I always call him my hero, Cody Canada. Haven't got to talk to you since you were in town at Smitty K's last year. And I loved that interview because I got to tell the whole story about how, I ended up in radio after meeting you. And so I always got to urge people, listen to our podcast. The Cody Canada from last year is still up there. We had a great chat and it's great to check in with you again. Happy New Year to you.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you. How is everything? Everything good?
I think everything's good. It's a little chilly here in Texas. It's chilly for Texas, I should say. Yeah. So how are you guys doing up north?
Well, actually, I live in New Braunfels. I haven't really publicized that a whole lot.
That's right. I always forget that.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really ever talk about it a whole lot, but I've lived here for a long time now, almost 20 years, really.
Oh my gosh.
But we're good. We've been isolated for a week. We were leaving for Steamboat on Monday of last week, and we tested positive. Dirk's my oldest boy, and I was sick, and I kind of figured that's what was up.
Yeah.
And a couple of days later, I tested positive. So we made the right choice, and we stayed home. And I turned my phone off because I really appreciated it, but people like Stoney FaceTime me while he was at the gig that I was supposed to be playing with him. And
everybody always looks forward to you being at Steamboat because, have you ever missed it?
I've never missed it. I've been going since 2001.
They even did, it was a couple of years ago now that they did a big tribute to you in your music, which was extraordinary. That's another thing for you guys to look at those performances and the tributes to Cody Canada. I always think my life is way too cool that I get to talk to you. This is
well, I appreciate it. You make me feel better about myself.
Well, you should always feel good about yourself, especially when you are cranking out new tunes. The latest that you're releasing to us is If You Want It That Much. So you got to give me the details on this one before we listen.
So before we get to the other stuff, I am still writing. I haven't done a group of songs because I'm still kind of trying to decide whether I should do a record or not. So I've been releasing singles. But this song in particular was written by a friend of mine named Scott Merlott and Gary Thomason. I don't know if you remember the Groovies, Susan Gibson's band.
Yes. Flashback.
So the piano player, guitar player, they wrote this song, and it's this is one of the first songs I ever heard when I came to Texas 25 years ago. And Randy Rogers talked about recording it for a while. He never did. The Great Divide cut it, and I feel like it's been several years since then, and I just felt like it needed not really a reboot, but I love this song so much I wanted to record it, and I've been playing it for about 10 years of my life, off and on, every other night probably. And we built the studio when we realized that we weren't going to get out for a while. We built the studio and realized that instead of spending $600 a day for a studio, we could just build one and record songs for free and then send them off to get mixed and mastered for $200 a piece. So
right.
It really is saving money, but also it gives us something to do. The studio, we've had that office for almost 20 years in New Braunfels, Schertz, Texas, and turned it into kind of a living quarters. And we, like once upon a time, my wife had Randy Rogers, Wade Bowen, Bolin, Mickey and the Motor Cars, Charlie Robinson, just all kinds of artists that were managed out of that building. And 4 years ago, she said, I'm done managing everybody but my kids and my husband. So we took it over and started turning it into a little machine shop for the bus. And then this last year turned it into a living quarters, full-blown studio. So we got people coming in and recording. And this was one of the first songs we cut there.
Oh, how fantastic. It's like a full circle. And wouldn't you agree that, and I speak from my own experience, I finally invested in my own home studio a little over 2 years ago. It was right before I started Maverick. And I actually programmed Maverick from my home, and I was shocked at how more creative I was working in my own home, in my own atmosphere.
It's very nice to be able to do your own rules,
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. Well, I'm really excited for everybody to hear this new single. We're playing it for you now on Maverick 100.9. It's Cody Canada, and If You Want It That Much. Due to copyright, Brian Broadcasting is not licensed to air this single in podcast form, but we do urge you to go download it. Find Cody Canada and The Departed and all their new music, which Cody and I continue talking about now. Cody Canada, If You Want It That Much. We've got Cody Canada on with us now. And before we were listening to the brand new single, we were talking about home studio, and your wife is now just managing you and the kids. But how cool is it that you have kids to manage? They are just,
I know, right?
Oh my gosh. We got to talk to Drew Cooper over the holidays and talk about the song you and Dirks did with him. And I follow Dirks. Now, I'm a Dirks Canada fan. I am blown away by your children and just how you and your family work as a whole. Was there ever a switch that went off that said, yes, we're doing this?
I always tell everybody I never forced music on them, but there's I know you can see that guitar hanging behind me.
Yeah.
That's actually the Reckless Kelly, their album cover from years and years ago. Willie gave that to me.
Oh.
But there's probably 20 guitars hanging around the house, basses. And it was always there if they wanted to play. But if they picked it up, I was willing to help, but I was never going to force it. But obviously it's going to seep into their blood. And they started playing. Dirks was full on. This was just like me when I was a kid. I saw so many concerts with my dad. And then when I was about 13 years old, my folks split and I snuck off to a Steve Miller concert.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw Steve Miller every year until I was probably 19. It was on my birthday every year in Oklahoma City. And Stevie Guitar Miller really was the reason I wanted to play lead guitar. Before that I was playing acoustic and singing country songs, and I thought I wanted to be a country guy. And then Steve Miller popped up and I thought, well, there's obviously some rock and roll influence here, so might as well just use both of them to my advantage. And Steve Miller was my gateway really to music. And I took the boys to see him about 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, we're buying tickets to the next show. That was in Austin. And then we bought tickets to the next show, which was in San Antonio. So we did 3 Steve Miller shows that week. Dirks grabbed my Buck Owens Telecaster and started playing. And I started teaching him a little bit. And then he wanted to take lessons from somebody in town because I'm not really a teacher, I can guide.
Right.
But I picked it up on my own and I wanted him to know a little more. You want your kids to know a little more than you do. And he went to a couple of places here in town. He got stood up about 4 times from a teacher. So we said, you know what, we're going to do it ourselves. So we opened up the School of Rock here. And then Willie wanted a bass. So I took him to Guitar Center and it was just the 2 of us in there. And I was on one side of the room and I heard some kid just kicking the crap out of these drums. And I went to go see who it was. And it was Willie.
Oh.
And I'd already bought the bass because he wanted a bass. And he goes, hey, I think I want to play drums. Are you mad? It's like, I'm not mad. He goes, well, you just bought the bass. It's like, well, we need a bass anyway.
We're musicians. It's fine.
Yeah,
It'll get
it's
you.
okay. The more instruments, the better. So we, with the school opened and the kids just flourished. They just dove head first. And then they started a band and it was really, I don't want to say cute, but it was cute watching them.
It's hard not to. And I'll get on that with you too. I want you to finish, but yeah, I get the cute part.
It's hard not to say cute, but it was, they're my kids, because I guess Dirks was 13 when they started that band.
Yeah.
And Willie just recently joined it this last year as the drummer. And now they got a record coming out at the end of the month. And it's crazy to know a couple of things. It's really crazy when people call and say, hey, can we open for you at Green Hall, or can we open for you in San Antonio or Austin? It's like, well, if it's a 200-mile radius, my kids are opening. So sorry, and I hate to say that, but I love to say it at the same time.
Yeah.
But we went to the studio with them to record their record and I was going to do guitar production. And my wife said, are you going to step in and help out as we're in the studio? And I said, I will when I'm needed, but I'm not needed. And I never had to step up. They walked in, rehearsed and ready, and we finished that record in 2 days.
Oh my gosh. That's heart stopping, but I love hearing you talk about this because we all have our full circle stories. My dad played in a band. My
Mhm.
parents had been taking me to shows since I was 2. They've taken me to the same music festival since I was 6 years old, and we still go every year in Kansas, which is full circle, where I met Cody Canada when I was 17. And because a radio lady took me backstage, and now I work in radio. And now I have a 17 and 15-year-old nephews, and they recently started picking up the guitar and bass. And now they have a band and they write music, heavy metal. Very excited for them. They're going to get to see Iron Maiden this year, which
Nice.
is and they think their Aunt Corliss is so cool because I've seen Rob Zombie 4 times, not because I work with musicians.
Yeah.
But I know that feeling, and it really is hard in my head to watch them grow up and they're not cute anymore, or they don't want to be cute anymore. They want to be taken seriously. And that's all I can do is support them. And I let that, they finally got a sound system for Christmas this year.
Oh, cool.
Oh, man. So now I'm like, well, I want to go through all of my studio catalogs and order them the real stuff, the stuff they need. And yeah, it goes to show that music is something that can be passed down in many ways. Your parents don't have to be musicians to make all your dreams come true,
Yeah. Yeah. We tell you, I bet I spend, I don't even want to think about the dollars I spend, but I spend 3 months out of the year going to concerts with the kids, which is great, because one day they're going to be out of the house and their families of their own. And just, so we're going to Red Hot Chili Peppers and in San Diego and Dallas. And then we're doing Welcome to Rockville. It's all metal shows, rock and metal shows. That's just
I'm with you. The rock is always I do country music for a living. So rock is always a bit of an escape for me.
Yeah. That's where I grew up, and
yeah,
like we're going to see Jason Isbell in May, but that's an adult trip, and
yeah.
So, but the rest of it is, it's all fun, it's so awesome to watch Dirk zone in on the guitar player, watch Willie zone in on the drummer and learn from it, because that's, I don't know, it's just what you're supposed to do, and so many people say to me, move over, old man. I've heard it from my friends, like, well, he's better than you. It's like, well, that's the plan. Do you think I'm upset when you say that?
That's all we can hope for. We don't want our kids to be us. We want them to be better.
Right. Exactly.
That's the whole job of being a parent. And you mentioned the School of Rock. So it's not only your own children that you're passing all these dreams and hopes along to. You're actually working with other children as well. Yeah,
we bought into the franchise. I never thought I would say that ever in my life. Just I grew up on the punk side of life, but we about 4 years ago I was losing my voice. I knew why. I was smoking too many cigarettes. I don't smoke at all now. I was smoked for about 20 years, and it just got the best of me, and I started losing my voice, and I thought, this is it. I might not have a career. So we dove into, and Shannon was done managing bands. So she wanted to do something different. So we dove in and did it at the same time. Luckily, I got my voice back. But I think we hired like 10 instructors in the beginning, and we got over COVID, we got down to probably 50 kids. We had about 150, and now we're back up. Now we're to the point where, we're going to Spain with the kids later this year. We're moving buildings because we ran out of room. Yeah. We have about 15 instructors, and it really is awesome. We got an email last night from somebody that said that their kid, didn't really fit in at school and didn't really talk to people. But when they come up to the School of Rock, they're flourishing, and that's the point. That's the whole reason for it. I always make the nerdy joke to Shannon calling it, Miss Xavier School for the Gifted, because that's what it is. And it's, it's for all musicians are misfits. You ask you look at Lady Gaga's history. She was bullied, made fun of, and now who's laughing? I get the same thing. Or even going back home to my little teeny tiny hometown in Kansas, and people are like,
oh, are you still in journalism or whatever? And I'm like, am I still an award-winning broadcaster like I set out to do at 17 years old? Yes, I am.
Yes,
Thank you for asking. We all have to have our creative outlets. Even School of Rock, that spans, we have one here in College Station. So as we're talking about it, if you have a child that maybe they need a creative outlet, maybe something in their school life is not lining up, that may be the way to go. And they teach adults. I actually just talked to someone last week about me starting drum lessons. I want to learn how to play the drums. I don't know why. I need an outlet, and School of Rock is where I'm going to end up going for that. So
that's awesome.
Look at you passing on the torch, it's but
doing my best.
You have affected many people you don't even know in so many ways, from your own children to radio to people across the nation. It's always it's a joy to get to talk to your creative mind. So
well, thank you.
You're very welcome. And I guess one last question, you said, you're kind of teeter-tottering. You're writing. You've got the studio.
Betty, quit. I'm sorry. Vicious guard dog.
These are real interviews. Real dogs live here.
Good baby. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. But can we expect any more music coming out of you in the new year?
I wrote we have a girl that's at our school. Her name is Elle Gorman. And she is, I'm not supposed to say things like that about like this, but she is the most talented person at our school that I know. There's so many talented people, but she went through a very hard breakup. She's 16 years old. Her folks used to come to my shows a long time ago. Now we're like best buddies with her family, and her and Dirks and Willie, her best friends with her and her sister Bryn. Her sister Bryn's a bass player. Elle's a guitar player, singer, piano player, everything. And she went through a pretty bad breakup, and I wrote a song for her. I'd kind of been, I don't want to say a writer's block, but, everybody had said over the last year with the shutdown that, I bet you're going to write so many songs, and but that's not how it goes with certain writers.
No.
Jamie Lynn was the same way. I said, I'm an observational writer. I can't sit and write about being stuck in my house. I can write a couple of songs and I have to move on.
Yeah. Get it out and then go and get a new story.
So she had a pretty rough breakup, 16 years old. We all been there. And man, it just devastated her and it devastated me. And just watching how sad she was. So it was one of those moments where my wife referred to it as the sick and tired moment, because I wrote that song about Shannon's sister when she was going through the same thing, pretty close to the same age, and I felt like if I wrote this tune, she inspired me to write it. If I wrote this tune, maybe it'll help her out. And it did, and I always tell her to write. And then I asked her the other day how many songs she's gotten out of this breakup in the last 3 months. And she said 40. 40 songs. I mean, I've written 40. I wrote 40 songs in a span of about 4 years, but never that many, and in a couple of months. But that one is being recorded. I redid Soul Gravy because I couldn't get my hands on when Ragweed split. It's been 11 years now. And when Ragweed split, we had one record left with the record label. And they said, we need one more thing. You're contractually obligated. It's like, well, you don't have a band. You're not going to get a record.
Yeah.
It is. So they did what they always do. They put out a greatest hits box set kind of thing. And it was called Box of Weed. And I tried to get my hands on that. And they told me that I had to buy them for $30 a piece. And I was like, these are my songs, my recordings.
Yeah.
My creation. They said they belong to us. You knew that when you signed the contract. It's like, well, I didn't know that. But
does anybody when they sign on that dotted line at a young age?
Yeah. And so the exact same people, the exact same organization, record label did the same thing to Taylor Swift. And when she decided she was going to start re-recording, I didn't know you could legally do that.
Yes.
And then I dug into it and I called some of her people that she is in business with in some of our old Nashville. I haven't even been to Nashville in 5 years, but I don't really need to go. And I'm really happy where I'm at. And I don't need to chase the rainbow anymore. I got a booking agency out of there and that's all I need. Yeah. And they said, you can re-record these songs. So I put it to a vote with the fans, and they said Soul Gravy first.
Yes.
Which is exactly where I wanted to go, because when we cut Soul Gravy, we were in such a hurry because we were on the road. It was kind of rushed. Now, when it comes to the songs, there's not one song on that record I would redo, throw away lyrically. When it comes to the mechanical part of it and recording, we rushed it, and I never was completely happy with it. So now I got to go back and take my time in my own studio, recut it. I got some friends like Mason Morris plays bass for Co. He came in and played on the opening track number. My kids and I played the song Flowers, because we just lost Shannon's dad this last year. So that song was written about her and him.
Yeah.
So we recut that, and Leanne Womack's coming back to sing, and Ray Wiley's going to split a song, and Randy Rogers. And it's just revisiting, in the way that I wanted to do it. And I'm not done with it. I'm done with that record. It's actually getting mixed on Thursday. But after that, I'm going to jump right into the next record, and just all the Universal Ragweed stuff I'm going to redo. And in between doing that, I'll just keep cutting the new songs, and I'll probably pile them up and put out a record eventually. I've said no record for 2 years. Because, but I don't know. I always say never before I say all that. It's like, well, I'll never do another record again, because I bought a truck 4 years ago and I went to put a CD in and there was no CD player. Something I didn't even think about.
I could never. I still listen to my CDs, or at home. Home is a no technology zone, kind of.
That's a good place to be.
But it's our record. If you want to listen to music, pull out the records, pull out the cassette tapes, pull out the CD. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been going back and forth on whether I should do records or not. And the thing is you can do a digital download and a vinyl,
Yes.
And the reason I say no CDs is because that studio office I was telling you about, is about 5,000 square foot. And I got about, 300,000 CDs.
Yeah.
Because, when Ragweed split, we really did 25 dates after the announcement that we were busting up.
Yeah.
And we had a stockpile of CDs because we were so busy. We were moving 100 units a week just out of the office, not counting on being on the road. So we had to have CDs, and now I have an entire wall filled with
just
stuff.
Ragweed.
It's like, man, I'm not going to make any more records. They're just going to sit here. And, the hippie environmental side of me wants to I don't want to waste material, And so I guess to answer your question, Soul Gravy's coming out this year, and new songs are being done, and then burn the bridge when we get there when it comes to the rest.
That makes sense. Well, it's so neat to hear you say in one breath, okay, the writing stopped for a minute, had a little bit of a lull, had the COVID thing going on. But on the other hand, your creative side didn't stop. You still had projects in your head, just not necessarily songs. And I think that's neat to see that, when one thing stops, another thing kind of picks up and starts rolling again.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I've talked for years about doing a cover record. I talked about a country record. I talked about a Haggard, Petty, Todd Snyder, and then a rock record. And then BJ from American Aquarium did the Bangers record.
Yes.
And I told him, I said, man, I love this thing. It's nice to hear you. I never heard him sing other people's music. And said, I've been talking for years about doing something. And he said, there's nothing holding you back. Do it. So now I'm piling up songs for I'd like to do a rock record. I don't know.
I'd like to hear a rock record from you, to be honest, as a rock fan. I think I need to do one. There were so many. I could probably pile half of my catalog up and make an entire rock record, and then a ballad record with the other half of it. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, we got the studio, and the sky's kind of the limit over there. Yeah, it really is. Well, and we've seen these past 2 years, the rock resurgence in Texas country music. The last time I saw you and The Departed was at Coke Fest this year. Mm-hmm. Great show, by the way.
Thank you.
But also in the same day, we saw Austin Meade. We saw Giovanni and the Hired Guns. We saw Co Wetzel. We saw Reed Southall. We saw you. We've seen this now transition. It's an alternative country that's even more alternative than alternative country. And to be honest with you, those guys obviously found that inspiration from you. You invented it. And so to hear you kind of go along more of a rock trail would be a very cool, but yet familiar sound for all of us fans. Did that make sense?
No, it makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. And watching, Reed, he's from Stillwater, and I spent a long, long time up in Stillwater, to see these guys.
That's where I was before I moved here.
Yeah. It's nice to see the rock side of this come out again. I haven't honestly listened to modern country music in a decade. Every now and then something hits me. And I still listen to Dierks Bentley, and he tells me not to. He really does.
Really?
He tells me not to listen. He's like, I don't want you to hear some of these songs. Like, dude, you're my friend.
Right.
I'll tell you if I don't like it, but I'm not going to make fun of you. You're obviously very successful.
Clearly doing okay. People are still buying it, buddy.
Yeah. But it's nice to see the countryside come out down here. I remember several years ago, somebody from Pat Green's band was telling me about Texas music is dead. It's like, it's not dead. There's no way it's dead. It might be dead in your mind, or what you're used to might be changing tracks, but you just kind of you don't have to change with it, but go with it.
Yeah.
And you can adapt a little bit. You don't have to completely sell your soul and do something completely different, but just kind of got to go with it.
People ask me all the time, like I said, Maverick is very fresh. It's very new. When I started Maverick, I was actually on my way out of radio. I was kind of giving up. I didn't really know who I was anymore. And then it was this company that said, no, you can come here and you can do all Texas country. You can do whatever you want. And I'm like, well, you're nuts. Turns out they weren't nuts. And it took off and people loved it. But people got a different perception of me for doing that. Almost like I was bashing. And people like to do that. They like to come up with me and bash other forms of country music. And I always tell them, no, I don't do that. Yeah. I believe that especially when it comes to independent artists, you're making music for someone, but it doesn't matter who. It's just a matter of who's listening. It's not a subject of opinion. It's only yours. If you love it, that's yours. It belongs to you. If you don't ruin anybody else's time. Not if it means something to them.
People come up and ask me my opinion on, like, what do you think of this artist or this song? It's like, I'm not going to give you my opinion on that.
Yeah.
Because
it doesn't technically matter.
You like what I like. I mean, you like my music, but I'm not going to give you my opinion, because if I do like it, you might not like it. And if I don't like it, you might like it. And I don't want to say, well, I don't really care for it. Then that person misses out on having a fan. That's that person's opinion on what music they like.
Yeah. And you can change your sound. You can change everything. It is all up to a matter of your own opinion.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, what a good music chat. I got all my music feels out with Cody Canada today. I haven't even said, oh my gosh, we've been talking so long. I got to tell y'all who I'm still talking to. It's the one and only Cody Canada. You guys still getting out on the road? You touring a little bit? We
are hitting the road this weekend. Us and the boys band Waves. We're playing Hochatown, Oklahoma, and then Abilene. And then I think we have something next week. I can't remember what it is. And then we go to Key West. Hopefully Key West. That's the plan. You're
in the clear from COVID for now. You already wasted it on Steamboat.
Right. If we would have left that morning, and we would have done our show in Denver with American Aquarium, and then we'd have been stuck in Denver for 2 days because of the snow, and then Dierks and I would have tested positive.
Oh gosh! Oh my gosh!
Well, Dierks was already positive, but
it
was. I don't know. Everything happens for a reason. I think we did the right thing.
It sure does. Well, safe travels to you either way, and safe health to you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. And everybody, please go check out the Departed's website. Obviously, we've got new Cody Canada. If you want it that much, you can stream, download, and hear it on Maverick 100.9. And of course, as always, Cody, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's been a weird week being locked up in the house. So it's been nice to actually talk to somebody that's not annoyed with me.